This gives you more power to collect that money for any money you spend doing so. I wouldn't necessarily recommend coming in and putting in a whole new yard. That's very expensive. What we recommend to our clients is that they certainly abate any nuisances or health safety issues. If there's plywood on the windows, you may want to replace a window. If the pool's black, of course, you're going to want to get that cleaned up because it's a health safety matter. But I wouldn't spend a lot of the association's money greening up a yard because it's very expensive. And even though you can get that money back, I don't think it's cost effective to spend that much money on a vacant foreclosed unit. Also, when this first started happening, everybody's going, oh my God, there's dead weeds in the yard, we've got to do something about it. There's so many foreclosures now that people have gotten used to it, and it's not quite as shocking as it used to be. So my advice is limit the money you spend. You will be able to most likely get it back, but you certainly want to abate any nuisances or health safety issues. One more question on this topic. Yes, sir. The green shirt. I think you can turn the water back on. You're going to have to give notice to the property owner before you do any of this. And you must give adequate notice to them. I like to give them several notices, but you can do that. And if you do, you're entitled to collect that money back. Just because you're entitled to collect it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy to do it, but you can do that. Let's move on to page 10, duties of a homeowners association. At the top of the page there was a change. The association has a duty to provide for the maintenance, repair, and replacement of the common elements, and the unit owner has the duty to provide for the maintenance, repair, and replacement of their unit. There was also an amendment, Senate Bill 68, regarding security walls. This one provides that the association is responsible for the maintenance, repair, and restoration of any security wall, which is defined basically to mean the perimeter wall around an association. Unless your governing documents assign that responsibility to the homeowner or another entity. So this is only going to apply when your governing documents are silent on the issue. And we've had a lot of cases where the governing documents, the CC&Rs, simply don't address who's responsible for this perimeter wall. So if you're in that situation, this is going to provide that the association is responsible. This is going to go in effect on January 1 of 2013. Why so long? Because they wanted to give the associations time to reserve for the maintenance and repair of this security wall, this perimeter wall. So if you're in this situation, you need to adjust your reserve study, adjust your reserve funding, so that by 2013 the association's in a financial position to maintain this security wall. Yes, sir. Okay, you have a situation on the perimeter wall. The homeowner waters their wall, waters their yard. The water seeps through, and you start getting the white stuff on the outside of the wall. That may not necessarily be the homeowner's fault. That could be a situation where that wall is not properly waterproof, doesn't have proper drainage. So that's something that you need to have a construction expert look into. In that case, if the wall is not built correctly, I don't think you have the right to try to make the owner pay for damage to that wall, because they're simply watering their yard. Now, if it's an overwater situation where, you know, their water hose is left on for 2 weeks while they're in Hawaii, that would be a situation where they'd be responsible for any damage. But you need to take a look at that wall and see if it's been built and waterproofed properly. Okay, let's move on to page 11. And I'm moving quickly because we have 2 hours and a lot of material. So, powers of board members. In the performance of their duties, the officers and board members are fiduciaries and must act on an informed basis in good faith, in the honest belief that their actions are in the best interest of the association. This is sort of an expansion of the business judgment rule that we already had in our statute. Basically, it says the same thing. But it says board members are fiduciaries, and I want to explain what a fiduciary is. A fiduciary is someone who handles the property, the money, or the affairs of another person or entity. And when you're acting in that capacity, you have to put that other entity's concerns ahead of your own. You have to act in the best interest of that other person or entity rather than acting in your own self-interest. So that's what a fiduciary is. And of course, you always have to act in good faith and in the belief that your actions are in the best interest of the association as a whole. At the bottom of page 11, there was a change regarding vacancies on the board. The law previously provided that the board may fill vacancies on the board with an unexpired portion of any term. They added to this, unless the governing documents say that you have to have an election for that vacancy. Now again, I don't see very many governing documents that have that. If you have a vacancy, you'll want to look at your governing documents and see if that's addressed. Okay, let's move to page 13. Candidates for members of the board are required to make certain disclosures. Particularly, they have to disclose whether they're in good standing. And good standing pursuant to NRS 116 simply means that you're current on your assessments. A lot of people are under the belief that if you're not current on your assessments, you can't run for the board or you can't be on the board. And that's not true. All you have to do is disclose it at the time you run. It's not going to help your campaign if that's the case, but you must disclose it, and you can still get elected and be on the board even though you're past due on assessments. Pardon me? No. Okay, this is an important addition to the law at the bottom of page 13. Regarding the candidate disclosure statements, the association is not obligated to distribute any disclosure if that disclosure contains information that's believed to be defamatory, libelous, or profane. Now, one thing we were hoping to see in this amendment was false information, but we didn't get that. So something that's libelous or defamatory, for example, if they say in their disclosure statement, the current board is on the take, they're embezzling money from the association, and that's not true, that would be something that's defamatory, and you would not be required to distribute that. Profanity is easy to spot, but what do you do if somebody circulates a candidate statement that contains a lot of falsehoods? Unfortunately, there's no remedy in the law for that, and you may be forced to publish that, even though it has false information. Okay, let's go to page 15. The terms of office of a board member, about 4 or 6 years ago, that was changed to a maximum of a 2-year term. And there were no term limits. You can keep running for the board 50 years in a row if that's what you want to do. This legislative session, they've changed it to not to exceed 3 years. Now, that doesn't mean that all of your terms are changed to 3 years now. It depends on your governing documents. It just says they may not exceed 3 years. So you have to look at your association governing documents. It's probably in your bylaws, and it's going to say the terms for these board members shall be or must be 2 years or 3 years. If it says 3 years, you probably should change back to that 3 years. And you're going to have to stagger your terms. So it may take a little time to do this, but if your governing documents call for 3 years, now you can do 3 years. You want to get back on track for 3-year terms and keep them staggered. If they say 1 year or 2-year terms, you don't need to make any changes. Page 16, item 7 at the bottom of the page. Or actually, let's go up to item 6 in the middle of the page. Punitive damage may not be recovered against an association. That's been the law for quite a while.